From this analysis here, I think Trump really mean business. But I wouldn't want a situation where all these journalists we keep distracting people. You understand? You guys has been here all this while that all this killing has been going on. You have been here. You keep your mouth muted. Your President Tinubu, he has been here. He has been hearing all the kidnapping, all the harassment, all the killing going on for years. Yet he kept quiet. He didn't say anything. All in a sudden, because President Trump have, raised the issue up, everyone now can open their mouth and give analysis of what they don't even know. They should shift one side so that we will know what is happening. They should not discourage Trump because people are suffering. Even since Trump announced that he will be taking action in Nigeria, a lot of killing has been going on still. So telling us that President Tinubu should put some things in, please excuse me. Allow Trump to do this so that people will have peace.
Since this debate started, I think this is a valid point from President Tinubu, that we need to fight insecurity. But I don't want him just to end at the point of rhetoric. I want him to match it with action. By now, there should be a battle plan drawn up by the Nigerian government as regards what will action be. A renewed action.
Now, barely 1 week after President Donald Trump directed the U.S. military to prepare for possible action over claims of Christian genocide, the U.S. military has submitted contingency plans for potential strikes on Nigeria. The New York Times reports that the U.S. Africa Command has drawn up and sent its options to the Department of War this week upon the request of Secretary Pete Hegseth. Arise News Chief of Correspondence Ferdinand Duroha reports has more.
The military intervention plan is drawn up by the U.S. Africa Command, also known as AFRICOM, a military unit Donald Trump had earlier threatened to dismantle as part of a Pentagon downsizing effort. It includes 3 options: heavy, medium, and light. The New York Times quotes the heavy option presented by the command as the most forceful military response that the U.S. could take against Nigeria. It involves sending an aircraft carrier group to the Gulf of Guinea, off the Nigerian coast, and using fighter jets or long-range bombers to strike targets deep inside northern Nigeria. For the medium option, the command suggests using drone strikes against identified military camps, bases, convoys, and vehicles. The New York Times says the light option would center on partner-enabled operations with the U.S. military and the State Department supporting Nigerian government forces to target and neutralize terrorists responsible for attacks on civilians. Although AFRICOM says the goal is to strike Islamist militants in northern Nigeria and protect Christians from armed violence, critics are skeptical about the objectives and implementation. While the plans were designed to allow for a controlled escalation, the asymmetrical nature of Nigeria's conflicts presents a major challenge as terrorist elements often live within citizens, making it difficult for the military to fully engage. The situation is also more complicated due to the issue of proximity. Presently, the United States does not have an airbase in any neighboring country to Nigeria, after exiting its bases in Agadez and Niamey, both in Niger Republic. This reduces their options to bases in Southern Europe and Djibouti. Ferdinand Duroha, Arise News.
In other news, Chief of Air Staff Air Marshal Sunday Aneke has assured Nigerians that the Nigerian Air Force will prioritize the safety of civilians and prevent collateral damage during its ongoing operations to root out terrorists.
Let me take this moment to assure Nigerians that the Nigerian Air Force will continue to work closely with sister services and other security agencies to root out terrorism, eliminate threats, and deny safe havens to all adversaries of our nation. Our joint efforts will remain relentless until peace and stability are restored in every corner of this great country. We will further strengthen civil-military relations by engaging communities, winning hearts and minds, and building trust. Our operations will be people-focused and respectful of the very citizens we are sworn to protect. Gentlemen, we have to take this as our priority. Protecting civilian lives and preventing collateral damage will remain a defining hallmark of our professionalism and operational discipline.
All right, very important statement there, Vimbai. Remember that in the last, under the last Air Force chief, there had been reports around bombings or bombs killing civilians in certain parts during some of their operations. So it's great to hear his assurance. But beyond that, first of all, it's a day of congratulations. Congratulations on your award received yesterday, TV Personality, TV Presenter of the Year. Congratulations, Vimbai. And of course, still celebrating Dr. Abati, who turned 60
There are implications.
today. There are implications.
But
absolutely.
First, the big implications, the 60-year implications. Once we get those out of the way, then
we move on.
can come with our own small implications.
All right, well, there are implications of insecurity. As we see, we have been talking about it all through the week, and the story is not going anywhere as at yet. Yesterday, the president had his FEC meeting for the first time in 3 months, as Adeso Omoran reported, just as we saw a few minutes ago. Your take on all these stories this morning?
All right. The big story is, of course, we've heard from the president for the first time making his comments with regards to all that has been going on with threats from Donald Trump and so forth. And he made another commitment yet again to squash out terrorists and terrorism and insecurity in Nigeria. And of course, we know this is not the first time. I went all the way back to November of 2022 during the campaigns when he said that one of the key things on his agenda would be to squash out insecurity. And he said this, I quote him directly, "We shall continue the fight against insecurity by redefining our counterinsurgency doctrine and practice. Our response to terror, kidnapping, and violent criminality will be defined by the following elements." He said we shall enlist more people in the armed forces, security services, and the police. Our forces will be given better tactical communications, mobility, as well as improved aerial and ground surveillance capacity. Through these and other measures, we shall better identify, monitor, track, and defeat these evil groups where they are. They shall have no respite until they surrender or are utterly defeated. November 2022. Have we seen an increase in the armed forces, security services, and the police? Not yet. To give credit to this administration, we've seen the introduction of forest guards and so forth, but that campaign promise is yet to be fulfilled. Better tactical communications, mobility, and so forth. I think we can argue that the DSS has been playing a stronger role in providing intelligence. We're seeing a lot more action based off of intelligence. But beyond that, are we seeing any greater tactical, strategic surveillance and movement from our armed forces? Not yet. So we hope that, given that we're currently engaged in a diplomatic imbroglio with the United States, that the political will now exist to make these changes that need to be made so that there can be some sort of headway made in this fight against insecurity. When you look at those options available, and now I connect it with the NAF strike and that commitment to say that there will be more accuracy with airstrikes. If the United States or any country whatsoever is to choose the route of airstrikes in Nigeria, I've spoken about this before and I reiterate, that bombs don't discriminate, especially with the strategy that we currently see of asymmetric warfare. Why do I say this? These extremist groups like to engage in human shielding. What is human shielding? In Latin, they call it muena ex captivis, which means hiding behind captives. They hide behind civilians. They hide behind the vulnerable. We saw it in Gaza. We've seen it in medieval times during the Crusade Wars. Even the Romans and the Greeks used it as a strategy. So when we talk of airstrikes, it's a very dangerous strategy because these extremists have decided to hide behind vulnerable people. So this is why people like me denounce any international airstrike coming in as a solution. We've tried the non-kinetic approach. Unfortunately, we haven't had any success with it, but I think that we still need to revisit ways to solve this non-kinetically, even though it's looking like the kinetic approach is going to be critical in squashing out terrorism once and for all.
Once and for all, let's squash it out, let's end the killings. Rufai, your take on these stories?
A couple of things. At first, I'd like to acknowledge what President Tinubu said, that we need to squash and fight insecurity. I think since this debate started, I think this is a valid point from President Tinubu, that we need to fight insecurity. But I don't want him just to end at the point of rhetoric. I want him to match it with action. By now, there should be a battle plan drawn up by the Nigerian government as regards what will action be. A renewed action. Because you see, when the Americans wanted us to invade Niger after the coup happened, Nigeria's battle plan was leaked by a certain journalist. We had a quick battle plan of what we wanted to do in Niger before that was stopped and people kicked against it because it would have brought monumental damage back to Nigeria owing to the cultural symbiosis between Nigeria and Niger. So by now we should have a battle plan based on intelligence of what we want to do. We should also have a battle plan based on tracking terrorism financing because these people cannot work without finance. And in tracking terrorism financing, apart from the work the NFRU will do, we should also see how we can infiltrate financial cells across the Sahel. Because see, those that help change money and give money to these criminals, you can find them in many parts of the African continent. Anywhere you have a land route, you can see them carry money with their camels and other materials, as well as arms. How do I know this? I know of somebody that has gotten on an African expedition before, and he told me that all he needed to do was to tell a money agent from Nigeria that he'll be passing through some African countries. And when he went through those African countries, the money agents will always send people that will come and give him local currency in that country. All he needed to do was to give. So there's an informal money financial chain across the African continent, apart from even the banking sector. The NFI will track transactions through the banks, but there's an informal money chain that we should also infiltrate and see how these terrorists are being financed. Thirdly, I'm happy that the Chief of Air Staff has said they will prioritize protection of citizens when they do that, their airstrikes, because that's also important. We had the case of Iran where a lot of people were killed in airstrikes. And we've also had people killed from airstrikes recently. Because we want to strike terrorists does not mean we should also kill our citizens. I accept that argument. As regards America, with due respect, I do not think because Trump is not in good terms with the New York Times, we should discountenance what New York Times said. Because there are people in American government that talk to every form of media in New York Times. Trump is also not in good terms with the CBSs of this world. But he goes there to hold interviews, despite the fact that he gloats on those platforms how he made them pay millions of dollars in a court case. So institutions like New York Times and other American media talk to everybody. You might not be in good terms with the government, does not mean that you will not have insiders that also talk to you. Most of the job we do in the media is a symbiotic relationship between the media and government officials, even with governments that you don't necessarily will agree with. What did New York Times say based on their reporting? They said there were 3 thresholds. Number 1, a light attack. A light attack would be a symbiotic relationship between Nigeria and the American forces, which would be most likely the case, and which we have pretty much been doing in terms of training and reconnaissance information sharing. The 2 other ones, medium and heavy, will not work. What is a medium? Probably set up a base around here or use a long-range drones. America has something called the Reaper that can stay in the air for a while. Use those drones, hover around, but those things have known not to be effective because the best you would just